Ending fights fast is the key to dropping high kill games, and someone who's mastered this is Peterbot. I watched every one of his tournaments for the past 2 seasons and listed the top 8 things he does to finish fights fast. First is using guns to pressure opponents. When I started buying these games, the first thing that stood out to me is how he would endlessly pressure players, and that was because of how much he used his weapons. His opponents never even get a chance to make a play because they're always on the defensive. Even though using guns to apply pressure is way better, you should still be using your pickaxe as well. While it has its disadvantages, Peterbot uses both his pickaxe and guns, making it difficult for the opponent to have any downtime in the fight. I noticed the main times he uses his pickaxe is when his opponent has their builds out or looking the other way, not really a threat to get counter damage. With the aggressive angles he takes, if he gets caught swinging, he risks taking a lot of damage for no return. And if he gets too careless and underestimates an opponent, it could cost him the game like it did here.
Get your ass over here right now. Get your ass over here right now, Peterbot! You f—
Something that's important to mention while using your guns to pressure is making sure that you're managing your reloads. In every fight I watched, there was never a time that Peterbot missed an opportunity for a kill or died to having no ammo in his gun. You also want to make sure you put your crosshair on your opponent while pressuring their build so you could potentially bleed bullets through and get more damage if they open up. Something simple Peterbot does that picks up free kills is hold his gun out when players are looking for counter damage. Like I mentioned earlier, he's able to read when opponents aren't looking for counter damage, but he could also read when they are. He'll pressure an opponent, and whenever they stop running or look like they're getting ready to make a play, he waits with his gun out and gets a free pump or kill. As you get more experience in these situations, you notice things that opponents do that indicate they're probably going to edit on you, like the way they move or take out their builds. Even if you can't determine that yet, you still want to hold your gun out, that way you're ready to react if something does happen. I'll cover some different ways Peterbot reads opponents later in the video. Another thing Peterbot does to end fights quick is take advantage of missing pieces. In this example, he notices the right wall of his opponent's box is missing and places it while pressuring the front wall to prevent him from going out that way. They edited out their tops and made 2 boxes but didn't place the middle wall. Peter notices this and walks through the box knowing he couldn't get hit because he was holding the wall in front of him, then hits a 1 pump to finish the fight. This is the most preventable yet overlooked mistake when fighting. I went more into depth with how to capitalize on this in my polarized fighting video, but the most common scenario this works in is from this diagonal angle. When getting pressured from this angle, the most common play is to open the peanut butter. If they don't have a coin in their box, hold a stair and automatically drop down to take the wall, because 9 times out of 10 they're going to reset the wall and try to break the stair or edit out the box. This has been working for seasons and a lot of players are yet to catch on. I saw a really effective counterplay that Peterbot used against this angle, which I'll cover later in the video. A simple but important part of finishing fights quick is hitting your shots. You could piece control a player and take great angles, but if you can't hit your shots, a fight could drag out for way longer than it needs to. There's a perfect example of this in my previous video. I had a fight that could have ended with my first 2 shots, but I hit him for 27, had him looking at a wall, then missed completely. I ended up winning the fight, but it took more time to kill him and I lost all my shield. You won't see this in any of Peterbot's fights though. It seems like every time he has an opportunity to do damage, he's hitting max. These fights end as quick as they start because he's able to hit his shots. Jumping in boxes is another time you need to be able to hit shots, and it's the most efficient way to finish fights quick. In almost every fight I watched, it seemed like Peterbot was in the opponent's box by the end of it. While it just looked like he was jumping in every box he could, there were 2 things that usually led to it. First was having a health advantage. If he cracked a kid or hit him for good damage, they would usually start making a bunch of boxes and do whatever they can to survive, so he would jump in and put an end to that before they could start. Second was if he could catch the player off guard. This player had the freshly edited wall, so he ran through and took the trade. In this example, the player had their back turned and he did the same thing. Other times he would just get in to get in. I don't think there was any decision making behind it, just confidence in his aim and having the best shotgun for aim duels. Understanding scenarios you should jump in the box is only half of the skill. Knowing how to get in is the other half. There's a ton of exploits you could use, but here are a few Peter used in his games. If you want to practice exploits, find a map that automatically holds walls to get the timing down. I use polarized practice map, but they all work the same. You can't practice exploiting from under the box, but all you need to do is spray, then crouch then uncrouch and you'll get pushed in. An underrated part of Peterbot's fighting is reading opponents. Earlier I gave the example of reading when his opponent wanted to rebox versus counter peek, or determining when he can and can't use his pickaxe to pressure walls. Here are a few more examples of Peterbot reading his opponent to help close out the fight quicker. In this fight, he gets damage on the player and they make 2 boxes. When he goes to pressure that box, he's holding his gun out waiting to see what they're gonna do. As soon as he sees them turn to the left, he jumped up and claimed the floor and cone for a free kill. I mentioned this in my polar video, but if you're getting pressured and need to expand from your box, go backwards. Any other angle you could get pieced from, like this kid. In this example, he starts pressuring this player's wall and tries to force a stare. He missed it, then moves on to another wall and sees that the players flipped their ramp and are looking down. So before the player even edited the floor, Peterbot already started to pre-piece that and got a free shot and kill when he dropped. In this last example, he's chasing a player and hit him 130. He notices they're walking backwards trying to get out of the box, so instead of continuing to pressure that wall, he decides to run around the box and meet them back there to end the fight quicker. Taking note of things like whether a player is holding their builds versus weapons or the direction that they're walking in all help in determining your next move and finishing fights quicker. The more you play, the better you'll get at noticing these things and knowing what your opponent is likely going to do next. This isn't a tip to end fights quick, but something Peterbot does in his high kill games is give up fights that are taking too long if there's another kid nearby. In this game, this kid was reboxing and playing really passive, so instead of wasting his time trying to fight him, he went to fight a kid who was third partying them earlier. When he came back to fight him, the fight ended a lot quicker. Something that these games put on display is how good Peterbot's box fighting is. In victory cups, everyone's trying to stay alive and avoid taking too many fights, so they stay boxed up. He does really well in these scenarios, knowing what angles to pressure from and what peeks to take, which gives him the advantage against less experienced opponents. Even against more skilled players, he's confident in his ability and plays aggressive, killing them no problem. There's no specific moves I thought stood out in these box fights, but he rarely messes up edits, allowing him more opportunities for shots and kills. One thing he does really well is reset walls that aren't visible. You have to put your crosshair where there isn't build so you don't accidentally grab them, and he does it right every time. Even when trying to play as aggressive as possible, there's still situations where Peterbot needs to play defensive, but the plays he makes here still end fights fast. First thing he does if he gets pushed is make space. If he gets cracked and is trying to get heals off, he'll change layers as well to make the opponent lose track of him. In a lot of these examples, the player will have a health advantage, but get too aggressive and overcommit to his builds where he's able to capitalize and get free kills.
Dude, I just wasted so much time looking for this.
Another thing he does is act like he's running and reboxing, then when the player starts to chase him, he'll turn around and max them. The main thing he does to get counter damage is look for pre-fires. A lot of these kids carelessly spray after doing a lot of damage just trying to end the fight fast, and that quickly stops once they get pumped. One example I thought was important to note was when he was on the defensive and a kid was trying to spray into his box. He pre-fired them for 100 and let them in, and although he had the health advantage, he didn't risk taking damage and got out the box to take a safer angle. A really common way to get pressured when boxed up is from this angle. Most people try to counter this with a peanut butter, but if the player is speaking correctly, you can't see them. So what Peter does is place a ramp under them, then jumps up and pumps them. It's really difficult for the opponent to track and see what's going on until it's too late. I only saw him do this once, but it reminded me of when I had a pro teach me this exact move almost a year ago.
And you're doing this, you're smacking my wall. What I do is I go out here. Build a ramp, and just side jump, and it works a lot.
I mentioned this because I learned the same thing I just told you 10 months ago, but never applied it to my fighting, so I never improved with that information. To prevent making the same mistake, make sure you add anything you learned to your gameplay. I'll recap the main points just in case you forgot some. If you apply all these to your game, you'll be able to end fights much quicker and drop higher kill games. If you learned anything from this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and let me know what other fighting topics you want me to cover in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys later.